Tax Pro, and we have yet another informative webinar for you. We are streaming live on multiple social media channels on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And today's topic is Families First Coronavirus Response Act, a new law implemented March 18th that basically requires businesses to pay for employees after they're sent home because they're feeling sick, or if they need to stay home and pay to take care of a child that is not able to go to school or doesn't have any daycare. And with us, we have again Mr. Carlos Lopez, our Executive Director of Latino Tax Pro. Mr. Lopez, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Good to be here. Thanks, Tony, for setting this up and getting this information out to our members.
Yeah, definitely. So what we'll be doing today is I'll go through the slides, and as we get to a certain section, I'll bring in Mr. Lopez for some commentary, or whenever you feel need to speak up, Mr. Lopez will do that for sure. So have you had a chance to review some of this? And I'm going to stop sharing the screen so we can have a conversation. Have you had a chance to kind of look over this
Oh, yeah.
law?
Mhm.
And then what is your initial take on this? Do you think it's going to be good for business or not good for business?
It's going to be not good for business.
All right, not good for business. So let's find out why. Let me dive in and then we'll have a nice discussion on that. So, okay. So first, let's get started. So like I said, it's a new law. Requires, let's get my notes here, signed on March 18th by President Trump. No, the law is called the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. This new law requires paid leave for small business employees affected by the coronavirus, also known as COVID-19. It also grants 2 new refundable payroll tax credits for small and mid-sized employers. These credits are designed to immediately and fully reimburse these employers dollar for dollar for the cost of providing coronavirus-related leave to their employees. The act gives American businesses with fewer than 500 employees the funds that they need to provide employees with paid leave. The goal is to encourage sick workers to stay home while keeping them on payroll. Now, this is not, I know we've been getting emails and calls today regarding the other stimulus package law. That's not this. The one that you keep seeing in the news today has not passed yet. That's totally different. This is already a law signed March 18th. Now, employers can receive up to 80 hours of paid sick leave at 100% of the employee's pay if the employee is unable to work because they are experiencing symptoms of the coronavirus and must be quarantined. So the way I understand this part of it, Mr. Lopez, is if one of your employees says, I don't feel good, I feel sick, they could stay home, and then you as the employer, you're required to pay for them to stay home. Is that how you read this also?
Yeah, the way I see it is if an employee comes in and says, hey, I don't feel good, I'm sick, then the employer must ask the employee for maybe a medical slip or some sort of proof that they went to a hospital or to a clinic, got a test, and they indeed do have the virus. I'm all for employees getting paid. What I don't like about this is, let's be fair. Why are companies with over 500 employees not subjected to this? See, that's one thing. The other thing is, it's and as you keep going through here, you're going to find out that it's also extended if you have a child at home that's sick with the COVID-19. Yes, you can miss up to 80 hours of work and still get paid for it, but you have to prove that somebody was affected by COVID-19, that you had to take 80 hours of pay to take care of them.
Yeah, perfect segue into the next slide. So as we could see here, the second part of it, so one thing as we just discussed is if you yourself as the employee are experiencing these symptoms, you're feeling sick, you basically the employee stays home and you get 100% of your pay up to 80 hours. But if you have to stay home because you have a basically a sick child or a family member, or even if your kid can't take care of himself, obviously he's a young child and there's no school and there's no daycare, you could also get paid up to 80 hours for that 67% of your
Right.
pay.
Yeah,
That's the thing.
you don't get the whole regular pay, you get 67% of your pay, which hopefully will be more than unemployment.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another thing that we're waiting to see if that bill passes today, maybe tomorrow, a whole other unemployment part of it. But if going back, so if you're exhibiting the symptoms, you stay home 100%, but there's a limit. So it's up to $511 per day, up for a total of 10 days. And the aggregate is maximum 5,110 that the employer is required to pay for an employee to stay home if they're exhibiting directly these symptoms. And the way I understand it is to prevent the employee from, forcing his way into work. Maybe a lot of people have to make that decision. It's like I feel sick, but I gotta, go make money, pay my bills, pay my rent, feed my family. And so what this seems that the intent, it appears that it allows the employee to stay home but still get paid. But the employer, though, it falls on the employer to continue
Well,
to
it
take care.
also falls on the employee, because if you look at your fourth bullet point, directly experiencing symptoms. It doesn't mean you can come in and say, oh, I got a sore throat, my chest hurts, I think I'm gonna go home. Well, as an employer, you're gonna have to come back with something, or somebody is, to show me that you really experience these symptoms.
Yeah, because then the employer needs to have that proof if they expect to be um, refunded or get that money from the government to pay out that money. Um,
Exactly. I mean, how do you know that? How does the government know that an employer isn't in on it with their
oh,
employee?
yeah, that's true. That could easily be done, right? Just to kind of get those funds away from that.
Yeah, I can see so many places for fraud in this thing. It's ridiculous.
Got it, got it.
Of course, we don't have the final guidance out yet. So,
Yes, yes. So again, if you are staying home because not because you yourself are exhibiting symptoms of, to take care of a family member or of a child that can't go to school because the school's closed, 67% of your pay could be given to you up to 10 days with a cap of $200 per day. That's the maximum. $200 a day, an aggregate of $2,000 for those 10 days. And that's if the employee is staying home to care for someone else. But then, like we just discussed, I mean, is the employee just able to say, hey, I actually feel kind of sick? Are they going to have proof from a doctor? And that's the guidance I believe we're still waiting to hear from
yeah, we're waiting for the guidance, the details.
the details. Yeah, and today is just kind of an overview of what this is. Now, also, if you um, are sending your employees home, and more than likely you are paying them for that paid leave, you're also paying possibly to maintain their health insurance coverage. There is going to be another credit to help you pay for the cost of maintaining their health insurance coverage during that paid leave. The way I'm seeing this is the government's really trying hard to keep people employed and on payroll. Now, a different credit. Now let's talk about a completely different credit. This is just the child leave credit. This is not the one we just finished. Was you feeling sick or having to take care of somebody who's feeling sick. So what this is nobody has to feel sick. It's just basically you need to be home because you need to take care of somebody that's there. Maybe it's a child that can't go to school, or there's no childcare facilities that are open because everything's shut down. So maximum $200 per day you do only get paid 2/3 of your pay. So 67% of your regular pay you are given through this paid leave, maximum $200, but up to 10 weeks, $10,000 in the aggregate. So, I mean, if these schools remain closed for more than we expect them to, and they go on, it looks like employees are going to be staying home and getting paid to be home. But then, what if the companies need them to work? See, I don't know if that's going to be an issue.
Here's the issue. See, where does your paycheck come from?
The employer?
Employer. And where does the employer get the money to pay the paycheck?
So the employer gets the money to pay from the workers producing the. Are you saying in general or?
Yeah.
Oh, in general, yeah. Well, the workers need to produce the work to make products or services to get the money to pay for the employee.
Yeah. So let's say your all your frontline people that work on the counter have to go home and take care of their sick children, and you have no one running the counter. All you have is a bunch of cooks. Well, yeah, you're gonna have to send a cook up there, but then you're gonna reduce your cooking staff, and your business is gonna suffer. And I'm gonna tell you right now, in my experience, most small businesses only make about a 5 to 6% profit on their hard work. So let's say you have a small business that does 500,000 a year. The profit left over is only about 25 to 30,000. So I'm looking at this. If you have 3 employees who want to go out on any one of these benefits, you're not even going to be able to pay that. I don't care if you get a credit or not. If there's no money in the bank, there's no check going out.
Yeah, then how are you able to pay for that leave if there's no money to begin with?
If there's no money, because everybody runs on a very tight budget. Everybody. Maybe Apple doesn't. But when it comes to small businesses like ours, we run on a day-to-day operation. And the money in the bank is used to pay bills. And the money in the bank gets there from sales, from the employees doing work. Okay?
Got it.
Because let me tell you, there's so many things that I have to do as the employer. I don't have time to be running the front line. If I'm running the front line, who's running the back of the house? How long is it going to last? My feeling about this kind of knee-jerk legislation, I mean, I'm all for people getting paid if they can. I'm all for it. But on the other hand, I'm not for the cure being worse than the disease. See, and in this case, this law, the cure is worse than the COVID-19. Because once businesses start closing, it's going to be impossible to get them all to come back. It's going to put our economy in shambles.
Yeah, because once you start, and you were giving an example of like a restaurant in town that had to close down, and now are they taking order? Are restaurants taking orders online, or they're just closed? That's their cash flow, right? I mean,
I had another restaurant. Okay, the one you're talking about, they just laid everybody off. They said, forget it.
Yeah.
We can't open the doors because we don't have enough to-go business.
Oh, okay.
So they just closed the doors and everybody's laid off and they're collecting unemployment until they can go back to work. Another one just recently was doing takeout only.
Okay.
And they closed their doors yesterday.
So takeout, because I keep hearing that if only we could help these businesses get online, if only we could show them how to use apps and do takeout only, they could survive. But I think that's just, it sounds good in theory, but in practice, it doesn't seem to be working, right?
You know, if you look at the average restaurant, like let's just say that the first one we talked about in downtown Salinas, I would say probably 90% of their customers have never ordered online through an app.
Yeah.
And now is not the time to start teaching people how to use an app if they're not coming into your restaurant.
Yeah, exactly. To begin with, right? Because a lot of them, I mean, it's just lunchtime to go grab a bite. They don't have to go. Like we don't use an app when we go and eat. At the office, we're trying to go grab a bite, have a meeting. We're not like, let's use an app. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's just like when this whole thing started, when we bought our new phone system about a year and a half ago, it has an app in it. It's called X1, and that is an app that you can download on your smartphone, and it actually logs you into our phone system so that you can receive phones through the groups. But when we bought the phones, I told the guy, look, we go out and we go to events, and we're gone 3 days, 4 at the most. Mostly it's 1 or 2 days. So we don't need to twin our phones, because we also have another feature that's voicemail to email. So you get your voicemails on your smartphone whenever you get your emails. So we didn't need it then. Then we have another feature on our phones. Not on our phones, but on our network system. It's called a VPN, virtual private
Oh, yeah.
network. So we used to have that before with our prior vendor. But this vendor said, we're going to put in some new firewalls. We're going to put in a software firewall, a hardware firewall. We're going to monitor it, and we're going to make it super strong. So this way, when people VPN into your system, it's protected. And I told them, well, I want it, but you don't need to activate it, because the most we're gone, like when Tony and I go somewhere, maybe 4 days, the most.
Yeah, at the most.
2 or 3 days. So we're not going to be VPNing in. And especially if you're on an airplane and you're trying to use the airplane internet, you know how that is.
Yeah.
It's sketchy, it's intermittent. So guess what we need now? We sent half of our staff home to work from home. So we had to scramble to get the twinning on the cell phones. We had to scramble to get the VPNs going. So the X1 app is going to be installed this week, because you never know. You got to be prepared for an emergency. Okay. Now, the reason I said this long, lengthy story is how many small businesses were ready to pay employees 10 weeks of 67% of their wages as sick pay.
Yeah, they don't just have money set aside for this, to happen.
We're lucky to have money every payday to cover the paychecks.
Yeah, right, for payroll, that's true.
So when I hear things like this, it's so unfair to the small employer. And I don't want to sound like I'm being insensitive to employees have unfortunately been affected by COVID-19, but we're not ready.
Yeah.
We're just
No, and that's a perfect segue, what you just said regarding payroll, because how they expect, and I'm sharing my screen again, how they expect the employer to pay for this is through the payroll taxes. So as a quick reminder, when you have employees, you withhold federal income tax from the employee's paychecks, and then also the Social Security and Medicare tax. The employer pays half, the employee pays the other half. And so employers who are paying this, who have to pay this leave, whether it's the sick leave because somebody is actually sick, or the child care leave because they need to stay home and take care of their children, the government, is it the IRS who's doing this, the Treasury? What would be the best term to use, Mr. Lopez? Is it the government who's asking us to do this?
I would say they're putting it on the Department of Treasury.
Treasury, okay.
And they're run by the Ways and Means Committee. So there's a bunch of stuff that's going to be coming out for guidance on this. And like I said, if you don't have any money in the bank, it doesn't matter what laws you create. If there's nothing to pay out, I mean, I can't possibly, and then to go to the bank and say, hey, bank, lend me money so I can pay these guys since nothing's coming in. Or people say, what about the SBA loans? Ha! Try getting one of those quickly.
Yeah, have you had any experience with the SBA loans? Because I've heard that it's not as easy as they say it is. It's a process, and if you get something wrong, it gets delayed, and then you have to have a financial statement. And unfortunately, a lot of small business owners, they're hustling, they're making sales, and they're surviving, and they may not have their accounting and bookkeeping up to the point where it should be, and it's hard to fill out that financial statement that they need.
Yeah, this is my profession. This is what I do for a living. Yeah, I've gotten 2 SBA loans in the not too distant past. But yeah, those were time consuming. It took 3 months, 4 months. And it wasn't that great of a deal either. So,
Mm.
it wasn't like bonanza low interest rates. I paid market rate interest, and I had to pay some fees that are associated with it every month. And it turned out to be an expensive, both of them were expensive loans, and I paid them off. I refinanced them to a commercial bank, which was cheaper.
Yeah, because I noticed the latest legislation that is being proposed. I forget the name. I keep hearing it's like the CARE Act or something. We'll find out. But the one that's gonna be hopefully signed today, if not tomorrow, the $2 trillion mass stimulus package. I noticed it includes like $860 billion for SBA loans to try to save these small businesses from shutting down and closing down. But if you can't get that money to the people they need it fast enough, I mean, it's gonna be hard, I think, overall.
Yeah, I can't even imagine having to go to the SBA. I imagine it's all going to be online now, and trying to get an SBA loan in a hurry to pay payroll.
Yeah,
If I was doing
especially.
all this. Yeah.
No, yeah, and you're right. Like it's not just that there is cash flow issues and there is a possible recession looming and your workforce is being, depleted. Is there's like a health pandemic going on at the same time. So that weighs on you psychologically. I'm assuming, as a business owner, very emotional strain on a lot of the small business owners in this country.
And we're an essential business because we provide payroll services for about 120 companies, besides bookkeeping, sales tax, which was due yesterday. We had to get that done for the prepaid. I don't want everybody calling me up and going, it wasn't due yesterday. Well, the prepayments were.
Yeah.
So we have to do bookkeeping to get caught up on that. Then we have to file those taxes for our clients. So we're an essential business, but we still have to follow the rules of 6 feet, social distancing, not more than 10 people congregating in the office. We have one office that's very large, so that's a challenge. So all these challenging things going on at once, and then throwing on another thing where we're supposed to pay people when there's no money coming in. I mean, to me, it's an attack on small business. That's how I feel about this.
Yeah. There needs to be some more advocacy because and sharing the screen again here. So how they expect small businesses to pay for this is basically that payroll tax that you're supposed to deposit to retain it. Hopefully there's enough payroll tax, you have enough employees. So you're supposed to retain that payroll tax, which includes the payroll tax that you can retain is the federal income tax, withholding from the employees, the employer and employee portion of the Social Security and Medicare tax. And that hopefully is enough to pay for this paid leave for these employees who have to stay home either because of quarantined or they have to take care of their children. Now, if you don't have enough to pay for that, the IRS is allowing you to file a request for accelerated payments, and you should get money within 2 weeks to help you pay for that. So it looks like they expect the business owners to pay out for these employees to stay home because they're sick or they have to, but then hopefully they get that money to pay for that. But like you just said, if they're running on a small margins, anyways,
Yeah,
they may not have the money to pay this out
right.
overall. So an example of that, let's say you have to pay out $2,000 in sick leave, whether it's 100% or 67%, but you paid out $2,000, but you've collected. And is it every quarter, Mr. Lopez, where you collect the payroll tax? Is that how you deposit that, or how do payroll taxes work usually when you collect and you deposit?
Well, payroll taxes depends on the amount of payroll that you're paying out
Okay.
and your frequency. So there's yearly, there's quarterly, there's monthly, there's semi-weekly, which means every 2 weeks, and then there's daily, which means when your payroll liability hits 100,000, you have to pay it the next day.
So you can't just
So-
hoard the money and pay it in the future.
You cannot hoard the money. And some of these payroll services, the IRS and the state governments have given them a break where they can hold it for a few days. Because some of these guys have thousands of clients, payroll
Yeah.
clients. So it's easier for the IRS, it's easier for the payroll companies to accumulate it and then pay it once a week or every 2 weeks, however their
Okay.
arrangement is. But
Got it.
so then now we're talking a whole different animal.
Hmm.
People that go through payroll services like Paychex, ADP, Gusto, okay? Now, how are we gonna hold taxes when those companies take the taxes out automatically? So there's gonna have to be a whole programming issue between, like our company, we go through one of those companies I just mentioned.
Yeah.
And I'm already, as soon as I heard about this bill, I thought, well, how am I going to notify them when they automatically withhold it?
Yeah, that's true.
So there's another layer that is not addressed in this new law.
Yeah, exactly. So, because if you don't have, if you don't hold on to it, if it gets taken out automatically, you can't use that money to pay for that sick leave because the idea is they're supposed to use the payroll taxes and retain enough. So if you have $2,000 worth of sick leave you have to pay out, and you had 6,000 of payroll taxes you collected, IRS's guidance is basically saying, all right, keep out of the 6, keep 2, so you could pay that employee for paid leave for those employees, and then only deposit the 4,000, the difference. But if you're not controlling that because you're going through a payroll service, it's going to be hard to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Another example is if you had to pay out $9,000 in sick leave. And again, maybe you have a few employees that are experiencing symptoms, a few other employees who need to stay home and take care of their children or a family member. So the point is you had to pay out $9,000 of sick leave, but you only collected $6,000 of payroll taxes. That's what it just came out to be. So now you use all the 6,000. So hopefully you have access to those $6,000. You retain them. You use the entire amount of payroll taxes, and then you apply for or request an accelerated payment of the other $3,000, which the IRS said should be processed within 2 weeks. So it goes back to how fast will the small business owner get that money that they're paying out, because the sales are low right now for most small business owners.
Yeah.
Overall, now as a self-employed individual, if you work for yourself, you are also able to get some of these benefits of this new law. So if you're self-employed and you are affected by COVID-19, this act allows you to claim a refundable tax credits, but you're gonna claim it on your 2020 tax return. So in your 2020 tax return, which next tax season, you're maybe Schedule C, sole proprietor, self-employed, maybe you're a contractor, it's going to be a refundable credit that you're going to be able to claim. So we encourage you to stay tuned because there's going to be all these updates, during the year. So this is just one of many. So how this works is if you're self-employed, your credit could be up to 100% of your wages. So first you need to calculate your average daily self-employment income which seems like a challenge because, Mr. Lopez, do most small business owners have a steady, or if you're self-employed or a contractor, do you have a steady daily average income? Or it seems like you get contracts and then you execute them, and it's more up and down, right? Overall.
Yeah, it's more up and down. So like I said, once again, like for example, let's say you're a contractor and you build a shed for your customer, and then you build it and you pay all your employees. But then what are you going to do if they go on sick leave and you have no more money in the bank?
Yeah. You're not able to pay them nor yourself, or worse, yourself.
Yeah, or yourself, even worse. See, what people don't understand, we're employees too. I mean, we have to work for a living.
Yeah, exactly.
So if I can't pay the employees who I think should be paid first, how do I pay myself? I mean, I have to make a living too.
Exactly. No, that makes sense. So if you are a self-employed, you get 100%. But so first you have to calculate your average daily self-employment, and then but it maxes out of $511 max per day. But if you are self-employed and you must stay home, not because of reasons of feeling sick or symptoms yourself, because you got to take care of somebody else, you get 67%. But all this is going to be driven through the 2020 tax return. 2020 tax year, when you're doing your Schedule C or your self-employment, and if you could be another entity, but 2020 tax year will have these changes. And now, if you are a small business and have less than 50 employees, there is an exemption specifically for the requirement to send employees home if they have to stay home to take care of their children. So if you have employees and they say, I got to stay home because I have to take care of my children, the schools are closed, there's no childcare. But if you're under 50 employees, you're not required to pay them in that regard. If it's different, if you send your employees home because they're feeling sick, then yes, that paid sick leave does apply in that respect, but not if they're going home to take care of their children because the schools are closed. So they made that exemption for under 50 employees. So hopefully that helps overall.
Yeah, let's find out.
Yeah, and then 50 employees. Yeah. So let's say you have a small accounting business, you have 5 employees, and you're super busy because maybe you're helping people with the SBA loans and it's complicated. And so, and one of your employees says, hey, I mean, I'm not feeling sick, but I need to go home because there's no daycare for my children. In that regard, they could go home, but you're not required to pay for them to stay home, because the reason is they're trying to stay home for their children, which is good. Of course, that's great. I'm glad that they're trying to take care of the children, but the law doesn't require you to pay them in that regard. So finally, there is going to be some non-enforcement period. Department of Labor issuing temporary non-enforcement policy because it was just released, and they're going to spend the next 30 days assisting business owners in this new law, new guidance, new requirements. We will keep you posted with any new developments and definitely with new guidance around this. And so we want to thank you for being with us. Any last words, Mr. Lopez, on all this?
Yeah, I hope that I don't come across being negative, because I'm certainly not that way at all. But we are here. Most of our members and most of our customers are business owners. We're a business to business company.
Yes.
And now our customers have employees. So we're here to share the guidance, to share the experience. I wish I would have been asked about my input on this. I would have done it totally different. Let me tell you how I would have done it. I would have said, look, we have 12 employees. 10 of them work full-time, 2 of them work seasonal. So I'll turn in my certified payroll to the government for 10 weeks. And you give me that as an SBA loan. I can pay my employees through that. And then when this whole COVID virus thing settles down, which it will, then forgive the loan. That would be cheaper than $2 trillion.
That makes sense. That
And it's
makes
verifiable because you're taking it off of my
Hmm.
payroll forms, the 941s and the 940s, see? So
Yeah.
that's how you do it. That's the smart way of doing it.
And then so that kind of goes to a larger question is, there's supposed to be those that advocate for us, maybe the Chamber of Commerce out there or all these other organizations, but maybe we need to do more, us as an organization, or partner with somebody else, because apparently our voice is not being heard with the right. We should be invited to those meetings at least to have an opinion, right? Like you just said.
Well, the challenge with us here in California is that the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is on the East Coast. California is here, but it's a smaller crowd. Most of our government is in the East Coast. So it's difficult for us to get out there, but I think we're making an impact. I think we need to get our members a little more involved and help us out with this stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm seeing a lot of good comments here from our Facebook viewers. Some people
Oh,
are saying this is gonna open up to a bunch of fraud. Fraud is
it
coming.
is. Trust me, guys.
Yeah, and then
Ugh.
somebody else is saying this bill is going to be a huge mess. Was saying so yeah, I mean different comments, but no, again, everyone, thank you for being with us. I continue following our Facebook pages, continue following our YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel, our newsletter, and much more, because there's still more news coming. I mean, right now we're paying attention to this new bill that's supposed to pass, but then there's still a last minute hiccup between both sides, some Republicans and Democrats that trying to get their way in there. But as soon as the president signs it, it'll be a law, and we'll bring the information right to you.
We'll be here on the breaking news.
Yeah, we love breaking news and we love giving you the information for sure. But thank you so much, everybody,
Thank
and
you,
as well
guys.
for your time. Have a good one. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.